Another day, another video, another opportunity to shatter the mental health stigma. Hello, everyone. If you guys are new, I'm Amanda. Welcome to the channel where that's what we are all about, shattering the mental health stigma. I have been getting a lot of requests both by my Patreons and here in the comments on my videos to react to Shatter Me by Lindsey Stirling featuring Lzzy Hale, which, by the way, I didn't make that connection when I did the Hailstorm reaction the other day. So people were pointing that out to me. I went, oh, that's why she's familiar. Well, unfortunately, I had listened to this song, so I couldn't do a first-time reaction, but I still wanted to make it special. So I decided to bring Lindsey's sister, Jennifer, on so she can add her voice to the mental health conversation. Thank you so much for coming today.
You're welcome.
I'm so excited to do this because I do think that the song has a lot of mental health undertones that we can touch on and share as we go. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's dive in.
I pirouette in the dark. I see the stars through a mirror. Tired mechanical heart beat till the song disappears. Somebody shine a light. I'm frozen by the fear in me. Somebody make me feel alive and shatter me. So cut me from the line. Dizzy spinning endlessly. Somebody make me feel alive and shatter me.
I always feel bad when there's no real good place to pause because I don't want to interrupt things, but I think that for me, the ballerina always kind of represented that desire to be perfect and poised all the time, and you just feel like you're almost trapped in your own story of yourself. You've created this story and you want to be beautiful and poised all the time. That's just not possible to keep up with that. Do you ever feel like that?
Yeah, when I was like really little, we're talking like 6, I had this kind of, I was very angry. I felt like me just existing made the world a worse place. And, I was always fighting with my siblings, and my mom would, "Dad, why are you like that? Why can't you just be, nicer or whatever?" And I had severe depression. And I remember thinking to myself and imagining in my head, like, how nice it would be if I could just be in a white room, with white clothes, and then people could just like feed me under the door, and no one, then I couldn't hurt anybody ever, and I'd stay white and clean and pure, and I could never get dirty or cause any harm. And what I was thinking was like an insane asylum.
Yeah.
I didn't know that,
Right.
but that was like, it's like a rubber room. Totally demented, sick thought. But to me, that was like ideal at the time
Yeah.
because of where I was at. But of course, I was basically putting myself into a prison where I couldn't do anything, learn anything, grow. I'd just be, fed and
Right.
sleep.
I don't think it's that sick at all. I think a lot of people kind of retract to that place in their head, be it a dark room, be it a white, pure room. I think a lot of people retract to that place in their head just to escape because they feel overwhelmed. And I think there's several ways to take this, but the first time I heard it, it was just break me. Just break me because I'd rather feel broken than numb. I'd rather I'd rather just hurt than feel nothing at all. So that was my
So
first
you went through a
interpretation.
time when you couldn't feel anything.
Yeah, I absolutely did.
So did I.
Yeah.
And it was awful because you want
Yep.
to be able to feel, but you can't.
And then I went through a period where I felt too much and tried to numb it out with
Mhm.
with substances and stuff. So I feel like I went from one extreme to the other. But yeah, I don't think that's weird at all. I think it's pretty common for people to
Yeah, not weird,
almost trap themselves.
just not healthy.
Oh, definitely not healthy, but a coping
Not
mechanism
a good
nonetheless.
desire probably to have. It's just like,
Especially as a child,
yeah,
that
6 years old.
you're supposed to get dirty at 6 years old. You're supposed to get all scuffed up and bruise the knees and stuff.
very
Probably why I relate to it.
I got it again.
We'd burn every magnet in spring and spiral into the unknown. Somebody shine a light. I'm frozen by the fear in me. Somebody make me feel alive and shatter me. So cut me from the light. Dizzy, spinning, endlessly. Somebody make me feel alive and shatter me.
I love that one.
Somebody make me feel alive and shatter me. If I break the glass, then I'll have to fly. There's no one to catch me if I take a dive. I'm scared of change and the days stay the same. The world is spinning but only gray. If I break the glass, then I'll have to fly. There's no one to catch me if I take a dive. I'm scared of change and the days stay the same. The world is spinning but only gray.
First of all, I really like the dynamic between the two of them. I think that was a really good choice for a collaboration because Izzy is so powerful and Lindsey is just so. She wants to come off as fragile. She doesn't at all. But I know that in the context of this video, she's supposed to come off as kind of fragile, but coming into her own. And I finally came to the point to learn that you're either going to be like her and you're going to realize that you have to be the one to shatter that glass, not some substance, not some outside source, not some Prince Charming or book or whatever the case is. You have to be the one to shatter that glass and break free. And you might feel like you're falling and it might be scary and you might feel like you're breaking apart, but it's the only way to really get back to the real world, get back to any level of happiness, at least from my experience.
Absolutely. And something that stuck out to me this time that has never quite stuck out to me before, she goes up to hit the glass the second time and it's like, no. And she uses a tool,
Yeah.
like her violin or
Yes.
higher power, or however you want to think. She's like, okay, this is what I'm going to use to break the glass. And it's not even her anymore. It's something greater because doing it herself isn't going to work. And I think for me, that was absolutely the case when I was trying to fix things and do everything myself. And it just was like running in a circle. And the same issues, same problems. It really took reaching deeper, reaching higher, and basically I found from experience that the only way to fix or replace something that's broken is to completely break it into pieces and allow like love to put it all back together again.
That's how diamonds are made, by the way.
Yeah.
Saying. People don't realize that, but there's so many times where you
basically have to get rid of the old person, and it's not that you're throwing yourself away. It's you're saying, thank you for teaching me what I need to know. It's time for me to move on now.
Yeah.
You're no longer of use to me at this point. I need to move on.
Right. And you're not trapped by this story that you were constantly telling yourself or this person you were trying to define yourself as. Because when you think about it, ballerinas really grind themselves to the ground to be what they are. And
a lot of blood, sweat, tears.
Yeah, there's a lot of blood, sweat, tears to that. And I think that we can all get trapped in that trying to define ourselves, trying to be perfect. I used to be so obsessed with the concept of perfection. And I remember being stuck on a quote from the show Nip Tuck: as soon as you stop striving for perfection, you might as well be dead.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
That's morbid.
I got that as a teenager and it stuck with me for so long. I had to break that tape. But I agree with you that I think there's a lot of tools that we can utilize and we don't realize, the power that we have, the power that's around us, the power that's in us. We just let go of that and stay trapped in this little bubble because we think we're safe. And we're not, because we're going to suffocate in there.
Yeah.
That's just how
Essentially, yeah, she's going to run out of oxygen.
Yeah, eventually
she'll run out of oxygen.
Yeah. You cannot live in a glass bubble forever. Or as I often say, ships in the harbor are safe, but that's not what ships are made for.
That's
You,
very
you
true.
can be safe in that white room, but that's not what you're made for.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody shine a light. I'm frozen by no fear in me. Somebody make me feel alive and shatter me. So cut me from the light. Dizzy spinning endlessly. Somebody make me feel alive and shatter Somebody make me feel alive and shatter me.
I love the butterfly. I absolutely do. I love the symbolism of that because butterflies are seen as dainty and frail when the flutter of a butterfly's wings can change things on the other side of the world, can cause a tsunami. So they're not at all. Butterflies aren't at
Well,
all
especially collectively.
fragile. Yeah, collectively they can do some damage for sure. But I liked the transition from the bat to the butterfly, you know, the fear to the beauty. And then the transition at the end of breaking free where it's, wow, I thought that I was in this beautiful little place and then I get released to the real world and I'm in this
Well, it looks so
massive,
dark.
massive, yeah, it is dark and it does get dark after a while being stuck in your own head like that.
Yeah.
It's just not a healthy place.
The outside to her perspective was dark
Yep.
until she reached outside of it
Yeah.
and broke it, and then it was like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was.
Do you remember feeling like that? Because I definitely remember feeling like that, where everything outside of my own little world just seemed like this dark, horrible place, and everybody was evil and everybody was out to get me. I felt like that for a long time.
I'm sure I had glimpses of that. I think I felt like I was the dark one,
Oh,
and that I was just surrounded by it, and that I could see that other people had joy. I could see that other people were happy, and so I believed in joy, but I hadn't experienced it.
Right.
And so I was grasping for that, like, why can't, I don't understand. And being trapped like that in your own self and not like you can see it, but you can't feel it.
yeah. There were years where I was like that, where I'd feel it very, very briefly. Like
Yeah,
something,
just
okay,
a glimpse.
yeah, something makes you happy for a minute, and then you're
Uh.
just right back. Yeah. So I felt like at the time, my default emotion was depression. My
Mhm.
default emotion was sadness all the time. I would feel little, okay, I got to meet this person or go to this place or I got to eat this really
Yeah.
good meal, and there was, I'm happy and it's gone.
Mhm.
And it's just so fleeting. But again, I was trapped in
Yeah,
that
there were very
bubble.
few things. Christmas was one of them.
Yeah.
Going to the snow. I was happy all day we went to the snow. But again, they didn't last. By the end of the day, I was cold and sad and crying, and then that lasted for like after that it was gone. The happiness.
So what
and
was it
everything.
really that broke you out of that? You said that you had to make a lot of connections to a higher power. I know for some people that's God, for some people they call that universe, whatever. I
Yeah.
don't think it matters what we call it.
So I speak from like a Christian perspective because that's where my perspective
Sure.
is, and how I was raised. But ultimately, I went to all of the worldly fixes first, because I didn't know what else to do. I did all the
A lot
right
of us
things
do.
that church taught me to do, and I think that it helped me kind of tread water. I didn't make horrible choices. I wasn't happy either.
Make horrible choices.
Yeah, I mean, we all. I mean, horrible is like I was
Subjective.
still mean. I still hurt people. I just didn't self-harm as much as I could limit myself apart from my own brain, but it was still damaging for sure. Um, but I ended up doing Prozac for 10 years, thinking that that was the only way it was effective. Had side effects too. Yeah.
Were yours really horrible? Were your side effects really bad?
It kind of takes you from being depressed to me, and then you don't get I lost the ability to really connect. Empathy is like gone.
Yep. I've heard that a lot.
I feel like like without the meds, like you're angry all the time, so it's hard to connect and have empathy, but it's on a whole different level when the drugs kind of just numb you out.
Yeah, I couldn't feel anything at all. Prozac was one of the first drugs they guinea pigged me on. I was on dozens over the years,
Yeah.
and Prozac was one of the first ones as a teenager. And yeah, I will say
It just
I
kind of
had the
gets you
same thing.
stuck. Like
Yeah,
you're at a point where it's like, well, I'm doing okay, so why try to make any improvements or
yeah.
fixes, or why try to go back
I'm
and
not hurting,
I'm
so
not
that
very,
must be good.
yeah, it's good enough,
Yeah,
you know, which is kind of still lame.
yeah.
And my mom actually went to her doctor and I called her one day with a question. She goes, "By the way, Jen, I went to my doctor and asked her about the Prozac because she was on it too. She was on it before I was." And she says, I asked him about the long-term side effects, and he told me that like when you take it for years and years and years and years, they're noticing that people just kind of check out. They just kind of do couch potato, like they just lack all motivation. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I can't let this happen to
Right.
me. I can't. And every time I tried to get off and not do it, I would turn back into a monster again, which I felt was very unfair to my
Yeah.
family. And you know, it wasn't fun to be that either. So it's just like, oh, what do I do? Like, I can't do this. Like, I refuse to go this path. Like, I wasn't born for this. I knew it. Like, something, because of my upbringing, like, you're taught that this is a plan of happiness. I'm like, I don't get it. But it's not supposed to be miserable. And I can see other people not living miserable lives. So there's got to be, I'm like, we talk about that we can be healed through God and all this thing. And I'm just like, for heaven's sake, heal me. Like, I'm done. I
Yeah.
can't fix it. So you're gonna have to fix it. Fix me. You made me fix me. And it was like, it wasn't even a please. It was fix me now.
Make it stop.
Make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm done. And I went on with my day, my life, like my week. I didn't stop taking the drug, but I just kind of like demanded, you're gonna heal me. And I was at a wedding. I never watch TV. But the TV was on in preparation for the wedding. We are just waiting, and there was this program on, and this guy was talking about omega-3s, how good they are for you, and how you should eat more of them. And I was like, that's interesting, you know. And then he kind of mentioned offhand, which I looked it up since, and I don't think this is actually true, but it hit me, like it impacted me, which was the point. And he said that in Greenland, very dark, they don't have a lot of sun. And he says, but they eat so much fish, and they have some of the least incidence of depression in the world. And he said, I think it's because they eat so much fish.
Because it has omegas.
Yeah, the omegas, the
You
B
can't put
vitamins.
yourself at risk of mercury poisoning by overeating fish, but eating
Yeah,
a
but
good
that was
amount
my
of it.
start.
Yes.
And I don't, at the time, I was like, that sounds like, you know, it's not going to fix me. Nothing's ever fixed me, but I'll try eating more fish.
It puts you on the right path.
Yeah.
I think that people often expect, okay, there's one thing that's going to heal me. It's
Oh, no.
either my religion, my faith, this food, a book, a pill. One thing is going to heal me. And I so frequently actually have an entire course about it because I tell people there's nothing that's going to do that. Not one thing. There's not one thing.
It's a process.
Yes, it's a process.
And there's layers and things
Yes.
like, but it's like these, for me, it was the first eureka moment.
Yeah.
Like when I started doing it, I didn't believe it would work. 3 months went by and I was really religious about eating fish 3 times a week. And I don't even need to do that anymore. Like my diet is so good now. You know, I've made so many other changes that in my lifestyle, everything, that it's not a crutch anymore. But at
Right.
the time, 3 months went by, I forgot to go get my drugs. Forgot, you know, just happened to forget. And day 5, I realized I haven't taken, oh my gosh, I need to go get my medication. And I started getting ready to go and I just was like, what? Oh my gosh. Like I sat down, I'm like thinking about the last 5 days and going, oh my goodness, like I'm okay. I'm okay. And it wasn't
I
like,
love that moment.
I can't believe it's working. And it's not like I was completely healed, but it replaced the drug.
Right.
And I didn't have side effects anymore. And it made it so that I could function. And at that point, when I realized if that works, what more can I do? I never went back, never got another, you know, filled prescription. And it was just after that, it was like just searching and, you know, thing after thing. And what else can I do? And things would come up and they'd kind of knock me off, but I could function.
Yes.
I could function enough
Yes,
to.
yes. So when life situations happen, you can work through them.
I'm like, well, that
Yes.
worked, you know, and I'm still okay, even though I'm not, you know, 100% okay. But I know that helped, you know. And then I started getting rid of chemicals in the house. Well, this
That's
helped.
huge.
And then
Yeah.
you know, if I put hairspray in my hair, I noticed a difference.
Yep.
I'd be like, all
I became
ew.
really sensitive to chemicals after I
Yeah.
started cutting them out. It's crazy.
You realize
Yeah.
how much, and then you're like, yeah, no. And then I got, it was like I said, it was a process, and then it was like my body was ready to start detoxing. I got really sick, and it forced me, because I knew what would happen if I went to the conventional doctor. They did the same thing to my grandma. You know, I had the same issue, and so I'm like, okay, natural. When found out what I had to do naturally, cried.
Good you.
Oh my gosh. So changed everything. Did a really, really tough, 3 months straight cleanse, but just about, I felt like I wanted to die. It was hard. Got through that. Didn't touch sugar in any form for a year.
Wow.
And that completely cleaned my system out. All my allergies went away. Things that affect your health and the way you feel, like allergies for 6 months of the year, kind of make you feel cruddy. So and then I started doing like energy work. Like I found people who could help me go back and look at my past and reframe it and let things go. And so again, it's layers. But once you get kind of that like that hope, you realize, there's things I can do, and I can be led. Like it's not just like trying and this, that, and the other. It's like using your intuition to be like, no, that's it.
Yep. And you go through the process of, well, this isn't working for me. Well, this isn't working for me. Like I tried a lot of different things and not everything resonates. I know some things are great for some people that aren't good for others. And I'm not anti-medication. I just want to make that very clear. I'm not anti-therapist. I'm not anti-medication. I just think that you should have a solid foundation with your own health. You should be doing what you can to boost yourself mentally and physically. I mean, they're intertwined. Our brain's part of our bodies, but we should be laying a solid foundation. And if you do still need medication or intervention, then that's fine, but that shouldn't always be the first route. That shouldn't always be your first line of defense.
One person take this, and I loved it. He said that with every medication you choose to take, it needs to have an exit plan.
Yeah.
So you don't ever take a medication thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to have to take this the rest of my life. You start making plans to leave that behind. If at all possible, like you're making strides. If you never get there, okay, but at least that making the effort and doing your part. And the more you learn, like I feel like I had to use a lot of people, a lot of help to kind of reteach. Like I just had so many lies in my head that I couldn't even see truth from error. Yep. And when people start saying, no, and you're just like, what? It really helps to have those people, to like a life coach.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point now where I can do most of my healing by myself. Yep. But I still know when I get into kind of that rut where I'm like, I'm in trouble. Like I need to reach out. This isn't going to happen with just me.
There's certain things that are just really tough to get through. And I've talked about this on the channel. I had a miscarriage and it just has wrecked me
last year
mentally in 2020.
Yeah, me too.
Completely, just completely. It's so traumatizing, and that's not something that I'm just going to go drink a green juice and get over. That's a process that may or may not take intervention, may or may not take outside sources, but it's not something that I can just say, okay, I'm going to put on some essential oil and drink some green juice and it's going to go away. No, but I have to, as you said, use my own intuition to get through that. And that's one of my goals for 2022, is getting to a point where I can.
Yeah. And using some of those really traumatic experiences as kind of opportunities, because a lot of times it's not just that starts coming up. It's just like like all this other stuff from past that just starts going, and it's right there in front of you, and you can either go, no thank you, stuff it back down, or take the opportunity to be like, okay, I'm going to take the time and I'm going to work through this. I thought I already took care of that. Obviously not.
I am so having that right now, Jennifer. Yeah. I'm so having that. All these things that I didn't think were affecting me are now coming back, and I'm going, oh, well, apparently I did not process that enough.
Something a little there left over. And I think sometimes, it's not even us. Like it could be, ancestral stuff. It could be someone we know who had that same issue, and like we're still connected to them. There's energy is interesting and exciting.
It really is.
And complicated and beautiful. But when sometimes when I just like not feeling myself, I'm like, I felt like I really took care of most of this. Like, is this even me? Like, is this something of someone else's that I need to pray for them? And then if I figure out what I need to pray for, then it will
forgive them.
Or forgive them. Yeah. Forgiveness is huge.
Yeah, I realized in going through this experience that there were a couple people in conjunction with just the topic of pregnancy that I've been so angry with and so hurt by, that did so much damage to my self-worth, that I realized I have to forgive these people, because all it's doing is damaging me at this point. It's they're never going to talk to I'm never going to talk to those people again. It's not going to hurt them in any way, shape, or form. The thing I liked the most about your story was you were talking about how you were praying and you were begging, and people think that when you do that, that it means that some higher power, God, universe, whatever, is just going to come down and say, oh, you're healed. But I think that whatever it is gives us opportunities.
Yes.
So if you're praying or meditating or whatever the case is, for patience, you're going to be presented with opportunities to be patient and practice patience. So I think that God or universe, whatever the case was, in your belief God, I think that God gave you that sign on the channel. I think that came on at that moment, so you would see it, so that you could start healing yourself. That was still.
You just have to be open to it. Like that. Help me to recognize the answers when they show up. I say that prayer all the time. Just like, I know they're out there. I know you know what they are. Because when people will say things like, "Well, I've tried everything," and I'm like,
"No, you haven't.
If you've tried everything, it would have worked.
Something would have worked,
because God knows what it is.
Yeah.
Even if you don't, and there's whatever's blocking us from seeing it at the moment. But just trying to open your mind, open your perspective, like, just get all of those preconceived beliefs that are keeping you from seeing what the real answer is, because some of us have such a narrow view of what's okay and what's not okay, and what makes you a good and bad person, what it looks like, or what path, if you have to go through kind of a icky path for a while, to get to an end, it doesn't make you bad. It makes you human, and it means that you're working through stuff, and as long as you're willing to work through it and not stay in that icky place, you're doing a pretty good job.
Right. There was a story that I love. It's one of my favorite inspirational stories. Is there is this flood happening, and this guy's terrified, and he just keeps praying, God, please save me from this. I don't want to die. I want to go on. And this man comes over, and he's got this apparatus, and he says, come up here with me. I'll help you. The guy goes, nope, I prayed. I'm waiting for God. And a few minutes later, this guy in an inner tube comes by and says, come in, I'll help you. I'll save you. He says, nope, I'm waiting for God. And a guy in a boat comes by, and he's up to his neck now in the water. And he goes, nope, I'm waiting for God. And then he dies, and he goes to heaven. And he says, God, why didn't you save me? And God's like, I sent you 3 people. What more did you want from me? And I always thought that was really interesting. I have a very different perspective on, energy and religion and everything, but I think it all kind of says the same thing.
It's the same.
It is. No matter what you call it, it's the same thing. We're just calling it by different names or referring to it as different things, but it all really still works the same. Energy transference works the same, whether we believe in a specific religion or not. I think it's kind of crazy that people see such a disconnect there, but
yeah, we most of us believe in the same stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, kindness, tolerance,
love,
light,
helping each other. I think that's a big one. And I think the people that don't want to help others or that are mean are hurting. It's because they're going through their own process. They've been jaded and broken, and
I also think that sometimes we have such a different idea of what that looks like.
Yeah.
That's what we're fighting about, is the means of getting there, when it's like, we want to go to the same place. Like, you go this way with your friend, I'll go, and we'll meet there.
Right.
We'll both get there, but we don't have to criticize each other for just going a different route,
So what is your advice to people that are feeling stuck in that bubble, in that snow globe, and are just wanting to shatter that wall and get to the outside world? What's your advice?
Well, again, like from prayer perspective, because I just love utilizing prayer, and you could pray, just to whatever you're able to grasp, if it's like, light or whatever that is for you. But if you're really brave, you can pray for basically tell them, I'm ready to move out of this space.
And it'll be hard.
It'll be really,
because
really
what's it going to do? It's going to
hard.
present you with opportunities
Yes.
to do that. It's not going to you're not just going to wake up one morning and suddenly be okay.
Yeah. Several years after this initial event, right, I was in a really, really dark situation where I was very tempted to make some very poor choices. And I wanted to make those really poor choices so bad. And resisting that, it was just incredibly difficult and just heart-wrenching. And long story short, I, after several months of struggling with this, I realized I can't stay here forever. This is going to destroy me, and
Yep.
I'm going to lose this battle. And so I knelt down, and in the shortest prayer I've ever said, I said, Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, I'm ready to move. Shake it up. And then I got up, and the next month was just my entire life falling into pieces.
Yep.
And it was at the point where I could not stop it. Like that, there was a decision.
Yep.
I'm going to move. You provide the way, because I don't want to be here. You know I don't want to be here. I just don't know how to do it myself. I don't know how to take those steps away from this. You're gonna have to help me and do it for me. And it was provided. And it was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, stop too much. But he's like, no, you're doing great. You know,
It's all right.
but at that point, I could not stop what was happening, and I had to act very quickly. And you know, the divorce came shortly after that. It was a rocking, crazy ride.
Once the momentum starts going,
Oh.
though, you'll move in the right direction. And
Yeah,
it's almost like you get.
And that was the thing, is my heart was in the right place. I wanted to make the right choices, and my desires were good, even though I was struggling to make them. And once I made that decision, and even though it was really, really hard, it was what I was needed to get to the next level. So if you're brave, you can say that exact same prayer I said. Watch your world go
Yep.
crazy, but it is a beautiful ride. When you look at it at the end, you're like, I'm really glad that happened. I'm really glad I did it, and look how strong I am.
I remember when I came back, I'm sure I've told you most of my story. When I was in Canada, I was on the ledge, I was ready to jump, I just couldn't take it anymore. Song comes on, brings me down. I have no clue what I'm gonna do. I realized I meant to fight. I meant to be here, but I don't know what to do. And cried my eyes out on the floor, prayed even though I'm not a believer, just prayed my ever-living heart out. And I came back, I went to a mental health professional who told me that happiness wasn't possible for people like me, meaning someone
That's real
diagnosed with,
helpful.
oh yeah, somebody diagnosed with a serious mental illness, SMI. Yeah,
Give them no hope at all.
right? Thanks so much. I'm glad that, after I just almost lost my life to suicide a few days ago, you're going to tell me that I could never be happy. Fortunately, it made me angry because I had this fire under me like you did, where I was feeling the momentum and I'm going, I came to you for help, and I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to prove you wrong. And I came home and I was meditating, and I, again, was praying, even though I don't even know what I was praying to. I was praying, and I thought, maybe there's a song I need to listen to, because I was always very much for listening to songs and letting that heal me. And that didn't work. And I said, okay, maybe I need to talk to my parents. And I start, Mom, Dad, I need some kind of sign. Can you help me? And I felt like that didn't work. And then I thought, you know what? I am friends with Diamond Dallas Page, who me and my dad grew up watching, wrestling together. We grew up watching him, and he was one of my heroes. And I texted him. I didn't tell him the extent of it at the time, but I just said, I'm really struggling, and I don't know what to do right now. And he said, you know what, buddy? You did this to yourself, and it's on you to undo it. It's on you to get out of it.
But
And I was
that's
so
hopeful.
pissed at the time, though.
Yeah.
I literally shattered my phone against the wall. I was so mad. But then I'm sitting there like huffing in bed and grumping and, oh, he's kind of right, but oh, he doesn't understand, but he's kind of right. And then eventually I started going, I'm not really living a life conducive to optimal mental health. And that's when I started moving forward.
Yeah.
So,
But too, like, even if you're abused, like significant abuse, the worst, think of the worst thing you could think of, you still chose to believe those awful things that you're living now.
yeah.
Like that happened before, and maybe you're in something now. You still have the freedom to leave that. Like, you've created, in any case, no matter what it is, even if you've made good choices, bad choices, what you have now, you created that. Period.
Yeah.
And that's a hard pill to swallow, and it's a hard pill for me to swallow too. It does. It makes you angry. Like,
Yeah.
oh, come on, no, this, my mom, my dad,
It's their fault.
my teacher, whatever, I was abused, sexual, whatever. But it's the truth of that is powerful, because if you created it, you can create something else.
Yeah.
Like, you're the creator. You're the one with the power.
Yeah.
Nobody else. No
They
one
can
else
hurt
can
us.
make.
Physically, and that can do mental damage, but we can shield ourselves from that if we learn how. That's
Yeah.
what we should be learning in school. We should be learning how to, shield ourselves from trauma and stuff, or heal from trauma, or how to live a life conducive to mental health. Nope, we're learning the dates of wars that we won't remember 3 weeks later.
Or even just everybody just get along instead of actually talk through issues and,
Yeah.
and confront problems.
Yeah.
Like how to disagree and be okay with it. Sometimes that's really traumatic for people who are just disagreeing with stuff.
Yeah.
And friendships end over I don't agree with you. And
That makes no sense to me. Like I'm not a religious person. She's a Christian. Look at that. We are having a freaking conversation. Imagine that.
oh,
It just it boggles my mind that people can't get past their differences. Or I've gotten in trouble so many times in my life because I am that person that I want to understand other people's perspectives. I want to learn because I think that even at the end of the day, if you and I don't disagree, there's still so much we can learn from each other, but people just shut off from that.
even if it's just understanding.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one for me is like, I want so badly to be understood. You know, I think most people do.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Nobody has to understand you.
Yeah.
Nobody. It's okay.
Right.
But if you seek to understand other people, that's where the just freedom and the joy comes from, because you stop trying to prove something. It's like, I'm okay with what I believe, what I am. Like, I have nothing to prove. Why does anybody have to understand me?
Yeah.
They don't. You know, if you believe, like I do, in Christian, like that power, you know that at least one person understands you, and that's
Yeah.
all that really matters.
And there's always communities, you know, whether it be a faith-based community or a mental health community, there's always communities of people out there. And I think that we need to do better about bringing them together, you know,
Yeah.
in each
But you're the
category.
only one who's lived your
Yes.
life.
Yes.
And no one can understand that.
Yeah.
Nobody. I mean, no matter how hard they try, they might do a pretty good job. But you're the only one who's lived it. And you're the only one with that perspective. You get a million different people who experience the same thing. They're going to have a million different perspectives and perceptions about what that was and what it looked like and what the truth was, what it wasn't.
Yeah.
And you all saw the same thing.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot going on. And I think too much emphasis on like forcing people to understand us.
Yeah.
It's kind of controlling.
Yeah, it is
You
controlling.
know?
It's very much controlling because we're forcing someone. We don't just want them to understand us. We want them to agree with us. So it's not about understanding, it comes to agreeance. And I think that there's something very powerful about just sharing. And that's what I always encourage people to do here is just share your story and talk about it and normalize it for other people so that they can see either a new way of understanding or they can see, hey, I'm not alone. So by telling your story, you're taking the stigma away. This is how we shatter the mental health stigma, is we tell our story because you're either taking that stigma away and you're allowing someone else to see that they're going through something similar, or you're allowing another person to be educated about what it's like to feel the way you do because maybe they have a loved one, you know, that's going through that and they don't know how to communicate with them. They don't know how to talk to them. They have no idea what they're doing, but now you've provided perspective.
Yeah. Some of my favorite parenting moments is when I see a child's eyes open to that understanding that I think for all, you know, children and adults too, who don't gain empathy, you end up thinking that everyone should just be like me,
Yeah.
you know, and think like me and what's wrong with you if you don't. And my youngest son in particular, he used to be very hard on his brother. He would, you know, when his brother would be angry, he'd be like, what is he angry about? This is stupid. And I'm like, well, if you look at what happened on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday of last week, he had a pretty rough week. He handled it pretty well. And it seems like maybe today it's all coming to a head.
Right.
Oh, that's stupid. Nothing happened bad today, you know? And he just couldn't understand. No matter how many times
My
okay,
ex.
well, one day,
My ex.
yeah, and a lot of people grow up like this. It's narcissism. So, you know, like kids struggle with narcissism. We all
Yeah.
do. And so a few months later, he came to me crying and he goes, I don't know why I'm sad. I don't know why I'm crying, you know, and I'm like, so we started talking, like, you know, it's probably nothing that happened today, like, and that's okay. Well, why? Like, this makes no sense. I'm like, I know, but like,
It does, actually.
Maybe, you know, it's the divorce, or maybe it's something that happened, you know, a few days ago. Remember, you were telling me that someone hurt your feelings, and you didn't make a big deal of it then, but you know, maybe it's affecting you today, and. You know, and then I related it to, you know, your brother Jaron. You know how, like, when he gets really angry sometimes and you're like, what's wrong with him? Like, this is the same thing. And you could just see in his eyes, like, oh. And that empathy and that understanding.
I love
and
that moment.
Just like, this is good.
Yeah.
This is really good.
I love seeing that in people.
You
So
know.
guys, make sure as always to share your stories here in the comments because like I said, you can help somebody else understand or you can help somebody else understand that they're not alone in this. We are not alone in this thing called life. There's so many people that you can reach out to, so many communities. Thank you so much for coming and
Thank you for
joining,
having me.
having this conversation with us. Such a beautiful song. I hope we touched on it Didn't mean to cut her off, by the way, but I think that everyone kind of knows where to get her album. If not, I'm going to link that below. And you have a blog too, don't you?
I do. I'm Aquarius.com.
Cool.
It's kind of a baby, but we're growing. I'm building a program to help people combat depression. So
Awesome.
it's in the making, in the works.
And the blogs are mostly about how you can incorporate different life changes to improve
Yeah.
mental health, right?
Yeah, some are funny, some are more, just helpful.
Yeah.
It just depends. But
Well, funny can be
I
helpful.
try to make them all entertaining in some way. They're written fairly well. I think.
I've read them. They're very, very helpful, and I'll link that below too, so you guys can check it out. There's a lot of good information on there if you're new to the journey, or even if you're not. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't know, and I've been doing this for years now, so a lot of good information. I will link that below. If you haven't already, make sure you make sweet, sweet love to the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content that is created to help you with your mental health or help you help someone else. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it. You never know who might need to see it, and I will see you guys later. Mwah. Bye.